Here at Be Freaking Awesome, we believe that life is too short to be anything less than extraordinary. Join us as we explore what it means to live authentically, grow continuously, and have a blast while doing it. Let's get started. Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of Be Freaking Awesome. I'm one of your hosts, Sami here with Angela Belford. And today we are joined by dear friend, business client, coaching relationship super fan, Jonathan Janacek. And we're really excited to get to have a conversation with you today, Jonathan, on our podcast. I feel like you have been a part of the journey in a lot of different ways and been following us and supporting us in so many different things. And so I'm excited to get to bring you here to this side of the conversation and talk today more about second generation business owners and those unique challenges that come with that.
Jonathan also has another claim to fame, which is that I finished my book just before his, I say finished, like it still needed the final edit before he got on a plane to go on the other side of the world. And so I'm like, hey, you need something to entertain yourself while you're on like 18-hour flights, 9 hours there, 9 hours back, whatever number it was. Anyway, and so he did. He read my book, a first draft, on a very long
and he's one of the endorsements on your latest book, Traveling Light.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So welcome, Jonathan. Thank you for joining us. Do you want to tell us just a little bit about you?
Yeah. So, first of all, thanks for having me on. Yes, I have been a longtime client of the Belford Group and also coaching with Angela, and that's something we'll talk some more about. So a little bit about myself. I grew up in kind of a typical family. My dad was an entrepreneur, started our business in 1987 as a handyman and continuously grew the company doing remodel work. So that's what we specialize in at Janacek Remodeling. I started off when I was a young kid, probably 9 years old, picking up nails, trash. I was really excited when my dad decided that I wasn't really earning my keep. In other words, my cost of my lunch every day, tagging along with him. So he wanted me to be more productive. So he offered to start paying me $5 a week. And man, I thought in 5 weeks I can have a video game, and that was my goal and intention.
I love it.
So I kind of did this all during the summers in high school and spring break and stuff. And when I got into high school, I realized I didn't want to sweat for my paycheck. So I was going to go to college, went to college for one semester, realized that wasn't for me. And I came back home. I worked in corporate America for 2 years and realized I didn't like that either. And so in the year 2002, I started remodeling with my dad, swinging a hammer and slapping a paintbrush. I started off just like every other person would, and the fortunate thing was my dad was not my supervisor. So I had another supervisor I reported to, and that's probably why I stayed on for the first 2 years at least, is because I didn't have to report to him. My mom was also part of the business. She did our bookkeeping and office management. I slowly progressed to learn all the trades. Eventually started doing a little bit of project management, and then I got into sales, and sales led to design and estimating. I did that for a while, and then I went back to project management, which I really enjoy, until I grew enough that the company needed me to step into a bigger role. And so I became the vice president of operations, it's about 6 years ago. And then 3 years ago, I became the president of the company. And a little over a year ago, I purchased the business from my parents and allowed them to finally retire. So that's kind of my whole story in a nutshell.
Hey, you know what I was thinking is, since we do your website, I was thinking, ooh, I'm going to snippet that video because that's the cleanest I've ever heard you tell that story. So we're going to snippet the video and add it on the About Us page. Bonus
Awesome.
Content. That's full circle, all the way from picking up nails at 9 years old to now the owner of the company, which I absolutely adore. And whenever I think about talking through executive coaching, this is exactly the situation that so many second generation business owners find themselves in, like I've done this literally. I interviewed, we had a gal work for us for a while that interviewed her, and she's like, I went to work for my parents' company. I think she was like 8 years old. Yeah, doing the same thing you're doing. Because honestly, your parents would probably call it like babysitting. Like they just didn't put you in camps.
Yeah.
You had to take a son to work day, right? But that is quite a transition. And talk through like the guy that was your supervisor. Has he stayed with the company? Obviously, that's been a minute, but like, let's talk about what that's like for how first the other employees treat you in that journey.
Yeah, so one of the, I think one of the best advices that my dad actually gave me when I started with the company was not to call him dad, to call him by his first name. And that was a couple of areas that affects. One, that your perception with the team that you're working with, when you start calling him dad, people see that there's this favoritism, and that's not something we really want to happen. I wanted to work. I didn't want to have, I don't want it easy like some people get, and I didn't want any nepotism going on. And secondly, with our clients, it was kind of funny when I would talk to clients and say, Tim this and Tim that. People would start looking at me and they'd squint their eyebrows for a second. They go, "Is he your dad?" And it was always kind of funny when they would get that moment that they'd figure it out. And I'd be like, "Yeah, he's my dad. But this is how we maintain a relationship during the business hours, that we can have disagreements and we can have fights." And for many years, our office was right behind my parents' house. And so we'd have fights and arguments in the office, and then we would go inside the house. And as soon as the door closed in the house, it was like, okay, father, son, family time. And it was a way for us to disconnect, from being upset or angry at something in a work situation, that we didn't bring it to like the Thanksgiving table.
Jonathan, I do the same thing as well whenever working with my parents. And even on this podcast, the podcast feels like the blend for business and personal, which is why it gets weird sometimes where I'll then be like, Angela, what do you think? Mom, what do you think? I also sometimes have noticed myself now, because I am still actively working with my parents, occasionally I will use the name that I use to indicate what kind of response I'm needing. And so one time I distinctly remember I got off the phone with a client and I looked up at my coworker sitting next to me and I said, "Hey, Dad, I could really use a moment to debrief from that call, and I just really need some comfort right now. And then can I talk to Barry about what we need to do about this call? But like, I need Dad, and then I need Barry. Can you help me with that?" And even Angela, I noticed this morning, I was texting my husband and I said, "Hey, AB said this thing about a weekend thing." And I was like, "Oh crap, I meant to tell my husband, Mom said this thing about our weekend plans." But AB is the text shorthand for Angela said do anything at work. And so now I'm telling my husband, AB said we got to go do this thing. And I was like, anyway.
It's funny in our agency. If this is the way we do things and you do something outside of that, as long as you put per AB, then like that's like the get out of jail free card. And I remember when, because it's like somebody has talked to me and I have like overridden the policy or whatever, or vetoed the client is typically where it is. Well, I remember especially when Sami started working, she's like, "He doesn't understand per AB." He thinks that this is still up for debate. I don't understand what is happening. The rest of the team is like, "Oh, per AB. Okay, done. Let's go." Anyway.
That's a good point. I like that. I'm going to have to put that into effect in my business as well.
Yes, it's super helpful because it's like, it's just a shorthand for, I talked to Angela, this is what she decided, blah, 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 and just per AB, the shorthand.
Well, and then Jonathan, my other thing that is similar but different is when clients find out that I am Angela's daughter, sometimes it takes them longer because I have married and have a new last name. And then sometimes they look at me and it's like, it's uncanny that you and the CEO of your company like look so similar. And I was like, well, I don't know if it's uncanny or if it's genetics because she is my mom. Like I try to give them the quick out. I'm not going to just be like, whoa, I wonder what you mean. Like,
well, and you meet people networking all the time. And you're like, you seem so familiar. And she's like, you probably know my mom. And I do know your mom.
I have also had recently a couple of times, it's at least been twice now, where somebody will be like, Sami, it's a pleasure to meet you. I've known your parents for a really, really long time. And I'm like, I always want to know, what does that mean? Does that mean you have a good relationship? Does that mean you have a bad relationship? I just need more context. Like, I don't know. A really long time. Like, I don't get it. I don't know how to. Okay, great. Well, I'm a new face. Make a new relationship with me. So
okay, so that is how you guys. I asked how employees treat you, but you both answered how your parents treat you. So is there any clarity on that? I heard you say I didn't want it easy. I don't know that we always hear that from owners' kids. And that's what I call them. Like there's preacher's kids, there's owner's kids. Those okays. What are you going to do about them? Right. And so talk about what that was like.
And I fall in that age group where, I had analog in my life and I had digital. And so I was able to blend the two together. So I grew up in a time of like, you worked hard to get things in life. And so that's where I've always looked at it is I didn't want somebody to just say, no, I'll do it for you because, the boss wants me to do it. No, I want to learn how to do it so that way I don't have to go ask somebody next time. But the whole relationship with employees, I think it's really important to remember you need to have some boundaries with them. And, you as a person that will one day hopefully maybe be running the company, you kind of have to like, I can be associates and I can be somewhat friends, but I can't be like best friends with employees. And that's sometimes a hard thing to transition, especially when you enjoy the people you work with. But really, I've always tried to keep a friendly work relationship with everybody and not take it to like, hey, what's going on this weekend? Let's go to a game together type of deal. Right. It's been challenging, but also at times it's a little bit lonely in that regards too.
I would agree. I think that you don't get to be in the same category as every other employee, and it's okay. It does come with advantages. It means that you're more likely to be consulted if there's a big decision that the quote owners get to be involved in, and you're not an owner, you're an employee, but the owners, aka your parents, are more likely going to ask you for your opinion and your take on things. But you are right. Like you're not going to get the juicy gossip about everything going wrong in the company because you are an insider on the team, on the leadership team. And I think that's fair. I think that makes sense. I think that it is a downside. It does make things a little bit more lonely. On the other side, you treat the work like it's your own, even though it's technically not your company yet. Like I'm not doing shortcuts because I know the people who I'm like screwing over are my parents, and that's not what I'm doing. And I think when I went, yeah, go ahead.
Let's say at the same time, you're screwing over your future.
Right.
Like this is one day what you're going to be. And I know, Sami, it's a little different for you with the last name not being the same anymore. But for me, it was like, this is my last name. It's not just my parents. It's my extension. And maybe one day my son as well, or my daughter. And those are the things that you internalize a bit more when you are an employee of the company and a child of the company.
Sami used to love to say, they weren't a group until it was me. I'm the one that made them a group. They were the Belford couple. I made them the Belford group.
I mean, it is true. I also think that I took that mentality when I worked elsewhere. And that's probably what made me really valuable during my corporate days, is that I didn't know anything different than to treat the business like it was yours. That was just the way it was. Of course you're going to do that. And so interestingly enough, I then went into corporate being like, no, we're not going to shortcut things. Like, we're screwing somebody over.
Yeah.
Like, somebody is going to benefit, is going to see this downside. Of course I'm going to do it the right way. Of course I'm going to like I don't know. It was an innate buy-in to the company, and not everybody else had that. And I'm trying to figure out how to say this in a way that doesn't sound insulting.
Well,
But,
the
yeah.
expression of a company man,
Mhm.
it's very far and few between that I see that. And, obviously, unless you're the owner. But when you do find that one employee that has that complete buy-in, like, I don't care if it's Friday night, if it's something that has to get done for the betterment of the company, we're going to do it. And that's just like, in my position, it was always that way. Every single day, I'm 100% company man, whatever there is. And that's kind of the part that it's oftentimes hard, because like, you want every employee to have that same mentality. You want every manager, project manager, to have that same mentality about every single thing, but they don't. And so you just have to like accept that you're not going to get that out of every person.
Well,
But
and so
it's
since I'm gonna pause y'all because I happen to know, and I don't think I'm speaking out of turn. I think anybody that knows you, Jonathan, knows that you struggle with perfectionism, and so do you, Sami. Sami's talked about it a lot on the podcast. Y'all both struggle with perfectionism. And so where's the balance in that idea of, I don't want to mess up my future company. I want to do it just right. It's Friday night and there's one more thing. Like, what strategies have you learned so far? Because I know we're all on our journey, right? But what have you learned so far to help you not let that go too far?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the things, as you were saying, that I realized that is part of that, I think, comes innately from not wanting to disappoint your parents.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And that, I almost feel that anybody that is serious about being a part of a business just naturally has that inclination to not want to do that. And there has to be a balance about that, about not projecting your desires and your wants onto every single person. And it takes a lot of conversations and pushback sometimes from the employees to say, no, I've got plans. I'm not going to be able to do that. And you being okay with that.
And
And
how do
then
you
at
take care of
times,
yourself? Is what I'm
yeah,
saying.
absolutely. And
Yeah,
and that's family also helps do that too. So my wife has been really good about that and saying, hey, look, I know you got work to do, but your kids need to go to bed. And they want their daddy time to be able to put you down. And I also believe that there's phases of life that you can give a lot more at certain phases. And then you also have to recognize, all right, this is a different phase of life. I got to slow down and reprioritize.
I remember having a conversation once with my husband that he and I said both of us likely would be just crazy workaholics if we did not have our family. Like, what else would I do? Like, if I didn't have a family to come home to, of course I'm going to stay at work till like 7 or 8, because what am I supposed to do? Go home and like watch TV? And so I can appreciate then the accountability that my family gives me to make sure to have balance, to make sure I don't go off the deep end. And I think that point you made about disappointing your parents, I mean, like, oh, that is the gut punch for me. I wrote an article that I'm very proud got published in Fast Company on their website, specifically about, I was presenting a project to my boss, and then my boss said, nope, it's not good enough. It's not up to snuff, I think is what she said. She didn't say the words, it's not good enough. No. But suddenly I'm an 11-year-old girl hearing her mom tell her, this isn't enough, and I disappointed you, and all these things. And I'm like, it was very hard to separate my boss telling me you need to put more into it, and my mom telling me this, I'm disappointed. And it was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna break down now. And I think that I don't know that I have figured that out. I don't know that I have figured out how to not disappoint my parents, or how to be okay with the possibility that I could disappoint them. I'm in the middle of that journey, and I tend to now just work really hard to try to not disappoint them, and that's my tool.
Well, and I will say that I think that the advantage you have, Sammy, is that because I am on my own journey of workaholism and perfectionism, then I work extra hard not to express that disappointment. And I don't actually think I said up to snuff, because that is not something I do say. But I think what I said was, that's a great first draft. You need to continue to develop your idea. And she starts crying.
Not my brain. Not my brain heard.
No, sure. And I mean, there's probably more words to it, but I remember sitting there and I was like, if you were an employee, I would just sit here quietly with you and let you pull yourself together, because I have had employees crying in my office. 26 years in business, you know, that happens. I'm like, as your mom, I want to offer to hold your hand, give you a hug, do whatever. Can you please help me understand what you need right now? And it was weird. I'm just going to brag on my own growth, because I tell plenty of messy middle stories on this podcast. So I'm gonna own a good one. But I remember sitting there and just knowing deep in my soul, this was not me. I didn't do this. This is part of her journey that she had to go on. And I could just sit there calmly and quietly without the voices in my head going, oh my God, you made your good cry. You know, the next day I probably could have had the same problem. Like I could have had a different response, but it was so peaceful in my body and in my mind to just be like, this is part of the journey. This is part of what she has to do. Just stay quiet. Don't try to fix this. That's what my brain was doing, was coaching me. Don't try to fix it. Don't try to like, don't water down your opinion, like hold to the standard. Because she interviewed for this job, she's like, I don't want to be a nepotism hire. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, if you don't want to be a nepotism hire, that means I'm not going to cut you. I'm going to hold you to the same standards of excellence that I do everyone, which, by the way, is the antidote to perfectionism. People are like, but I go really high. I'm like, no, you have to define your standards of excellence, because you can't achieve perfection, but excellence we can achieve. And I have really, that's the journey for me, is like, what is excellent and what is too much, and what am I gonna, if I do this much more, how much more benefit am I gonna get, or how much am I taking away from my family at that point?
So I want to tell a little story about dealing with your parents. My company had the same logo for about 25 years. And Angel's laughing on this one. And when I took over owner of the company, I realized like we needed to change this logo. Like it needed to be updated and modernized. And I think we went through something like 15, 20 different logos that the Belford Group had drawn up for me. And
not normal. Don't think that that's the standard.
No, it's not. It was not. And I paid for them,
yes,
some of it anyways. But every time I would get a copy of the logo, I would choose the one or two I really liked in that set of 4 or 5, whatever it was. And I would sit down with both my parents and I would say, what do you think? Because I wanted to honor and bring my parents into something, even though it was mine. I wanted to bring them into it. And every time I would give them something, it was this feedback or this feedback after something that I had, that we had really worked on hard to get to somewhere where I liked it. And I'd always get this feedback, or it was like, well, it should have this. No matter what you do, it should have this in it. And so we kept just trying to make something happen. And I think it was 9 months into the whole process that I finally called up Angela and I said, we need to have a call. And so we talked about it, and I realized what it was going on inside me is I wanted their approval. And I wanted them to be a part of it, and I wanted them to be pleased with it. And there was so much of that just wrapped up in this childhood, you know, got to make mom and dad pleased with me. And we had a great coaching session about it. And I cried a few times in the coaching session just because it's a lot of emotion that can come out in situations like that. And you sometimes don't even think that, no, this has nothing to do with my childhood. But then, like, yeah, there's some stuff there that I'm struggling with. And so Angela went back to the drawing board, presented me with a few more, and the very first one was it. You know, we made a few minor tweaks to it, but it was the logo. And that's where we're at today with this. And I'm very proud of it. Every time I see it on my trucks driving down the road, it gets me excited. But when I finally was happy with it, that's when I showed my parents. And I didn't ask them, what do you think about it? I said, this is the direction our company is going now. And this is our new logo. And, you know, it took a few months, but my parents finally gave me some feedback. And they were like, yeah, it was very hard to receive that. Because for so long it was our company, our logo, what we made and what we as a couple, both my parents, developed this logo. And it was their identity. And so now this is my, I know it sounds weird, but this is my identity. This is my business. And it was probably one of the healthiest things for me to be able to do, to kind of make that break and identify it as mine and not my parents. But it took me 21 years to get to that point of working in the business. And everybody's path is different. You know, yours can be shorted to 5 minutes, 5 years, or, 30 years. But it's a path, and there's no shortcuts to getting through some of this stuff. You just have to wade through it, and it's not easy. So that's my story about parents and logos. And
I love it so much because because you were a coaching client, I had so much more patience than I typically have for just my marketing consulting clients. I also knew the clock was running. I'm like, that's fine. Let's change it again. That's fine. Whereas typically we do a package price. And anyway, I was just like, okay, more billable hours. That's fine. We'll work through it. Also, I remember that session because it really highlights what I like about kind of the new role that I'm taking on, which is like, I literally said to you, okay, I'm going to take off my marketing consultant hat now.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put on your coach hat. And so I gave you that moment to switch gears, and we did have to dive into the emotion, which I love. I love that we can be like super strategic and practical and like, let's get this done and let's set this up. And then we can like, go, hang on, time out, let's address this underlying stuff first, even though things that we don't think of that are impacting us, work through that. And then we're like, okay, I'm going to take my coach hat back off. And now I'm going to put my marketing consultant. And you're like, I think I just need to let you do your job. And I went, what a great idea.
Yeah.
So there was so much about that session I loved.
I remember that session, and I said, the only thing I'm going to give you for parameters is it has to have my name in it.
Yeah.
That was it.
Well, that's a funny story too, because I would come in from new client meetings, and my one graphic designer just teased me and goes, did they get to keep their name? I was so notorious for being like, that name is dumb. We're changing it. Anyway, I'm like, it's not that it's dumb, it's that it's ill-positioned for the marketplace. And I would shorthand that too. Anyway, so that was always the joke. Did they get to keep their name? I don't even think I renamed that many businesses, but it was enough. So that was an important parameter for you to put on me.
The cost of having you go through and do all those logos for me, all the revisions that as you said, we were on the clock for. There's times in your life that you're going to feel like a failure when you do those things. And like, no, this is not. And I never blamed the developer group. It was me. But what I realized, and that was therapy for me.
It
Like
really was.
that
Yeah.
helped me get down a path of something I didn't realize.
Yeah.
And I say that to also say that you're gonna make mistakes. We all make mistakes. And sometimes those are cheaper than going to therapy. Sometimes they're a lot more expensive than going to therapy. But we need to make those mistakes, and fall on our face and learn from them. And the hard part for parents, because my parents expressed this to me later on after I've had some time away from my mistakes, was the hard part for them was to not rush in and want to fix the problem, to let me sit in that problem and deal with it. And I give them so much credit for that, of letting me make those mistakes, and not just coming in and fixing them. Like, money can fix things, or, taking over and managing something themselves can fix it. But they're like, no, okay, it broke. What are you going to do to fix it now?
Yeah.
And sometimes that did require asking them for advice, but they wouldn't offer the advice unless I asked for it.
Yeah. A few weeks ago, we had an episode with Cash from Icon Foods, and I told the story that Sammy, you can make the same mistakes I did, but you have to listen to what I did because things change. And I was saying how one of the things as a parent, especially if you made an expensive mistake, it's very tempting to say, no, we can't try that again. We've tried it before. And I have to be super cautious to realize that technology has changed a lot since I tried something, that the world has changed a lot since I tried something, business,
Yeah.
all the things. There's so many of the variables of the experiment that I ran that didn't. And so, but if I made a big mistake, and I had to pay for it, there is a higher cost of time and thinking things through for Sammy. I try not to I just don't like to pay for the same mistake twice. And so then on those particular initiatives, she has to be a lot more thoughtful. She has to have thought things. She has to have showed me, proven to me that her experiment is different. And here's the parameters that have changed and this. Whereas if there's something that she wants to try that I've never tried before, and wow, that's a good idea, she might get just an easy yes on sure, give it a try, especially if it's not going to cost a whole lot of money. And maybe it's just, oh, we're going to invest some time and we'll give something a whirl. So I think that as the first generation, as the parent in this situation, be aware of when you are tempted to say like, no, I've tried that. It didn't work.
Yeah.
Things might have changed, and figure out for you what it is. Because you also don't want to swing to the opposite side and, well, just because I tried it, go ahead, you can try it now. Well, they can make a stupid mistake because they don't have your wisdom. So find that balance. And I would just say that watch your words too. I have to be extra supportive in those scenarios. Because oftentimes I tell people, if we have a weird policy you don't understand, I promise I got screwed. And so now there's a policy. This is the process. And so I have to be really careful not to bring the emotion of that mistake I made, that failure I had, or how it didn't work out to this conversation and make you guys inadvertently feel bad when all you're trying to do is make the business better, know.
Well, and
So,
Angela, you are also kind of a visionary and often ahead of your time. And some of your ideas, you're like, I tried that. And I'm like, I know. And you were like 6 years too early. And if we try it again right now, I think it's going to actually work. But you just you wanted everybody to use QR codes, and you were really on that train, and people were like, I don't get it. And now if you're not using a QR code, 2010, you were out there putting QR codes on business cards. People thought that was so silly, and it was just ahead of its time. You were there early. So that's sometimes my
Angela, I really want to say thank you for saying that, because that was something that I wanted to bring. Exactly what you said is something I wanted to bring up. But it's more powerful coming from you than it is me, because I saw those same things happen to my parents. me wanting to do something and they're like, no, we've already done that. It failed. This is the reason why. And then there's moments like, yeah, but was there something else going on
Yeah.
that caused that to fail that you're not looking at right now, that you can't
Right.
see? You're internalizing and feeling the failure of it.
Right.
And what do we do with failure? We, fight, flight, or what's the other
Freeze.
one? Yeah,
Freeze.
fight, flight, or freeze. And I'm trying to look at this like, yeah, maybe you did fail on it, but let's talk about the parameters of what caused that to happen.
Right.
So, I don't make that same mistake, but also what has changed between now and then.
Yeah.
And
100%.
And there's another component to this that I encourage parents to keep in mind is that your kids are going to fail. It's going to happen. And the hard part is to not hold it over their head, first of all, especially when it costs money. But secondly, giving them an opportunity to correct it. And sometimes that opportunity may not come right away. It may take a while. And I'll give you an example for myself is I was looking at a software for running our company or construction projects. And I was on board with this, and I was a little bit younger. I don't remember, early 30s. And the company said, hey, fly out here to Virginia. We'll give you a 3-day crash course on it, and then you'll be all set up, and then you can go back to your company and roll it out. Well, the people I was trying to roll it out to was my dad, my mom, and another project manager their same age. And the technology barrier there was pretty extreme. And I did not know how to roll it out to them in a way that was that they could understand. And because as a millennial, it was real easy for me just to get into it and start using it. And so honestly, we probably paid, I don't know, out of pocket $5,000-$6,000 for this software, plus my time to drive there, fly there, hotels and everything. And it was just a waste. And then about 3 years ago, I was like, hey, I want to do this again, this other software. And my dad was just like, are you sure? How are we going to do this again? I said, well, first of all these barriers that were there are now removed. And so I had to explain to him the things I learned from the first time to not make those same mistakes again. And it was very helpful because it helped me be more intentional with rolling it out this time. And it's been a wild success. We've had a lot of great processes developed and great results from it.
That's awesome. What a great example.
Well, and I think that
technology changes so fast that software probably is even easier now than it was then.
And I just can't imagine. I was like, teaching family technology, like, it just adds the extra piece to it. It's the patience required to teach somebody how to use technology. And then that rope is already going to be a little bit shorter when you just have more personal relationships with them.
I agree.
Yeah, a lot. Jonathan, thank you so much for the conversation today, for the advice and the wisdom that you have given. I am sure that I needed to hear some of the things that you had to say today, and I really appreciate it. And I know we've said it before, but I appreciate you and I are in similar seats in different timelines and phases of it. And so getting to sort of see your journey and learn some of the things from you, for my mom to see the things that have happened in your transition and learn some things as well. All of those things are great. Anyway, she's rolling her eyes at me. She's rolling her eyes because she thinks she's never retiring, but at some point she'll be tired of this. But in any case, thank you so much for your time and your wisdom today. We really appreciate it.
I've learned a lot along my journey, and I'd be happy to sit down with a cup of coffee and talk to anybody else that wants to go down this road as well. It's not for the faint of heart, but the rewards of spending so much time with my parents, when I look at my life versus my siblings, I see it that I have spent more time with my dad and my mom than anybody else in the world has, except for each other, except for them.
Yeah.
And so that's a blessing that I get to take with me for the rest of my life.
That's super cool. Thank you guys so much for listening today. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. And until next time, we hope you guys go be freaking awesome. Angela, that was such a good conversation with Jonathan. Oh my gosh. And I feel like he was like prepped and ready to go. Like, I have lessons learned and wisdom that other people need to know to get in on this. And oh my gosh, it was really, really good. I just loved it. I wanted to follow up and let all of you guys know listening, if you are somebody who relates to where Jonathan is at and could really use somebody to support you in that transition, wherever you are located, Angela's there for you and she can help with that process. And I know that sometimes self-promotion gets weird, so we're going to take the benefit. Let me just tell you, Angela is very good at what she does. And she's very good at helping people figure out the business side of things, the emotional side of things. As she said, she'll put on the different hat for the different moments that are needed. So if that's something that you're interested in, you're absolutely welcome to reach out to us. We would be happy to talk with you more about what that looks like and how you can get the same kind of support and somebody to come alongside you in that transition, just like Jonathan did.
Well, I'm glad you said that it's anywhere, because even people in Northwest Arkansas, they're like, no, I want to do face-to-face coaching. I'm like, I'm sorry. I only do Zoom coaching. And the reason why I do that is because, especially when you are doing emotional processing, I want people to feel comfortable in their home or in their space or in their office. I can't tell you how many times I coached Jonathan where he pulled over on the side of the road. We would have our call. He's like, I'm so sorry. I'm running late. I'm just going to stop right here. This is our time. I'm just like, you're hilarious. Anyway, but I want people to be in their own space, because I think the one thing that is good and bad of therapy is that you create a safe space somewhere else in your therapist office. And so you can be anywhere and I will coach you, and people think it's not effective and, oh, you can't connect with people. I'm like, you absolutely can. I have done a lot of very deep emotional coaching work. We're on Zoom.
I love it.
And you heard Sami and Jonathan talk about how lonely it is. And I would say that it wasn't until today that I really understood how passionate you were. You've always been very emphatic about starting a group coaching model. And I was like, okay, sure, take it or leave it. But in listening to you explain, both of you share how it's lonely when you're in this opportunity to take over a business and there's a lot of responsibility, but there's not always, you don't get the same friends at work kind of support. Sami has started a group coaching program for those emerging leaders. An emerging leader does not have to do with how old you are, right? Because we have people in that program that are early 20s, and we have people in that program that are much, much older than that. And that is an opportunity to be able to share in a safe space and to be able to unpack some of those communication challenges that can come from working in a family business. And it's not just for second generation leaders. It can also be for people who are leaders in a family business. So someone that is looking to, they just have to navigate all of those emotional challenges. Those are also a really good fit for your group coaching program.
It's been a couple of months now since we've gotten started, and it's so exciting to see the growth that people are having, some of those aha moments. And I enjoy getting to poke holes in people's theories and beliefs about themselves and ask, but why? Are you sure? What if that wasn't true? And I'm really feeling, not that this is just about me, I probably should be talking more about the person on the other side and the client. That's what all the marketing experts say. And I know you guys are all here for the journey. It's been really neat for me to get to sort of experience that joy of coaching and getting to help watch people see tangible improvements in their life. So it's been exciting. And thanks for supporting me and letting me try something new. Yeah. Even though you're like, okay, sure, I don't know. Anyway, when we talk about the different ideas and all of that, because I do really love the group coaching model. It's not just that it's scalable, it's that I learn so much from the things that other people are willing to say and the things that other people bring forward as their challenges. And I think that everybody can benefit. It's not just me as the expert in the front of the room. It's the group and the collective together growing and improving.
So that means that if you prefer one-on-one, we have that option. If you want a group situation, we have that option. And all of those, we designed this really, when we talk about designing your life and designing your business, we live it. So for us, we also have our family business forum, which looks like we're probably going to shape up to have at least twice a year. And it's an opportunity for people in family business to come together, to network, to be able to meet other people that are in that same type of business. It's always growing and evolving. What I love is that our format is that in the morning, we're dealing with emotion and soft skills and things that are probably less practical, more on that, soft skill, that's the easiest way to say it. And then in the afternoon, we are typically dealing with more tangible, hard, practical skills like AI in business, investing in leadership growth. We'll have our a panel discussion where we will hear from other business leaders. And so we've really been very intentional about designing those family business forums, and would love for you to join us. Those are in person. And so great excuse for you to come to Northwest Arkansas. And we have them in the spring and in the fall, which are two of the most glorious times to come to Northwest Arkansas. So would love to have any of you that are in family business join us.
We also, for this next upcoming event, for the first time, are going to have the Family Business Awards. So if you know somebody who, maybe you're not in the family business at all, and you know somebody doing great work and that they are crushing it out there, go to our website and nominate them. We'll make sure that all of the links are in the show notes. And we'll make sure that on the Be Freaking Awesome website, you can get to the Family Business Forum information as well. Thank you guys so much for listening. We so appreciate every single one of you tuning in each week and being a part of our growth journey and joining in the community. So until next time, we hope you guys go be freaking awesome.